Hello and welcome to our Assurance Massive Open Online course. My name is Pankaj Kumar and today we'll be talking a little bit about our testing fundamentals and STLC. Now, before we start talking about testing, let's see what is testing. In our day-to-day life, when you want to go to buy any electronic shop item, then before you make the actual purchase, you would want the shopkeeper to probably give you a small demo of all the features are working fine, up and running in front of you or not. And once you are satisfied with it, you try to you make the final purchase and you try to implement it at your home. So what you have actually seen is one of the testing activities that has been performed, and it's all around us. Coming to the software testing part, um, we could talk a little bit about the software testing life cycle. We'll be primarily dealing with three of those: waterfall, V model, and iterative development models. Now, the example I would want to put for all three of those is of, say, there's a new bank, say Bank A, wants to launch a good interface for all these customers. So the interface, which is the bank URL, then it should have a UI, good looking UI in place where the user should be able to log in with the ID and password, valid one of course, and then should be able to log into the home page of that UI, and then should be able to perform a fund transfer to any separate account of a separate customer in a separate bank, Bank B, let's say, and should be able to log off. Pretty simple example. Let's see how our STLC models behave for this example. So the first one is waterfall. Now we have talked about the URL, so let's see the stakeholders should be listing down all the requirements. So the first requirement says about the UI. It should look like it should have such and such layouts. It should have a couple of user inputs fields, which is ID and password. I should have a login submit button. Then in my home page, it should give you all the transaction lists and things of that nature, the balance details, and you should have a fund transfer screen wherein user should be able to add a new account of a separate bank, Bank B, another user, and then should be able to do a funds transfer for, say, XYZ dollar, and should be able to log off. These are pretty much the requirements that the stakeholders define before we actually start going for any other phase. Now, as you see, the waterfall model, it's pretty easy to understand. As the name sounds, the current phase cannot start before the previous phase has been successfully reviewed and finished. So the requirements have been finalized. Now there is a flexibility of still modifying the requirements with a change order. That is kind of optional and as needed, but we'll stick to fixing the requirements in the waterfall model first. Then you move on to the next system design, as in you want to deal with the architecture of how the different systems or interfaces would behave, as in you're going to have a UI in place. Then you have to have some APIs which do the data transfer from the UI and back and forth to any database or multiple databases. And if this system as such, Bank A's URL should be connected to any common middle tier central bank system which retrieves or does the balance or payment transfer to other banks as such. So once you have developed the system design, the architecture, and drilling down to all individual system designs and component designs, then you start implementing that, as in you start coding for that each and every component, and then systems. Once the coding has, I mean, internally, the developers also do some unit testing, which is more structural, and then white box testing. They do it. They want to test the code that they have written, is it working fine or not, with maybe mild data parameterization. Then you have the next phase as testing, which is done primarily by the QA team separately, and they go for the rounds of testing, thinking themselves as users, and then testing the technical part of each and every system, the interfaces, doing some automation, doing some mild regression as needed. So once the testing has been done, you might find some defects, and then you go for another retesting and then regression testing. So this cycle keeps on going forth, and then once you have enough confidence in the prioritization of risk-based testing, then you go for the next, which is deployment of that code into production, and then this is handed over to the production support team. Now moving on to the next one, which is V model. This is a sequential software testing lifecycle wherein you have each phase of verification is tagged to a corresponding validation phase. So what you do is at each phase of this STLC, you want to define the kind of testing that you would want to do. It's more testing oriented. So if you see the user requirement being defined at that phase, you have to have acceptance test plan, as in how the users would test these requirements. Are these requirements meeting the users expectations or not, and how the user would feel about the requirements. So these kind of acceptance testing. Then the next one is software application. We're going to have the whole system architecture developed, and you also parallelly do the system testing plans, different interfaces. Then drilling down to the next one wherein you have the high level design. For each systems you have different integration testing plan, how the different systems would interface to each other, and once they integrate, so before that integration and after the integration. Then the next phase is detailed design for each components or each units, every module, every functions of an individual system. um, then you write the unit testing plans. So that's what we have in our V model. The next one is very common these days. It's an iterative development model, which is the example I have taken is agile development. In agile, what you do is, instead of fixing the requirements right at the front of our life cycle, we make it little flexible. We prioritize the requirements, and the topmost priorities we align it to few builds or sprints, you call it. Say it could be just a couple of weeks or 1 week job, and then you find out how much of requirements we could carry on in that particular build, let's say. So say for example, in the first build you just want to develop the APIs, and that time you do not have the front end and the back end DBs in place. So you design the development just the APIs, and then you do the testing. Maybe that time you do not have the connectivity interfaces in place, so you do the virtualization and do the testing and implement it. Next phase you could have just the database design and coded for it. Then you integrate it with the APIs, and you just test the middle tier and the backend DB tier tested, and you merge these build one and build two codes together. And maybe in the third phase you want to just come up with the UI, how it looks like, the layout, the different fields, the different control IDs, and you integrate it with the you do the testing and implementation, and then you merge all these. You keep on doing the incremental testing as well once the codes are merged for the previous builds. So in this type of model, what happens, the stakeholders get enough confidence about how we are progressing, and then they could very well go back and then change the requirements also if needed. So it's pretty much flexible these days, very cost effective, and we keep on getting reviews also from the stakeholders at each phase within a build, and after the build as well. So this is what we have right now. Some discussion that we had today about the waterfall, the V model, and iterative development models. So I hope this was little beneficial to all of us. I would like to thank each one of you for your patience in listening to this Assurance Massive Open online course about our testing fundamentals and software testing lifecycle. My name is Pankaj Kumar, and I would like to thank you one more time. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye.